Cavs' first double-digit win of the 2017 playoffs. They take a 1-0 lead over the Toronto Raptors in the best-of-7 conference semifinals. Rick Fox, Steve Smith, Jared Greenberg back out to Cleveland for live post-game press conference coverage in just a few moments. Guys, the Cavs continue their dominance against the Eastern Conference in the playoffs, especially at home. But the Raptors, on the other hand, they continue a trend. It is the 10th straight Game 1 that the Toronto franchise has lost. That is a tough streak that they'd like to see come to an end, but it doesn't tonight. And you saw the big three of the Cavs come out strong, come out firing, Smitty. And really, while Toronto had the lead a little bit early on, this was Cavs start to finish.
You're totally right, Jared. And LeBron said in that press conference, energy. They came out, won the play. They looked like they were in a playoff game. Whether they played well or not, they came out focused. They came out ready to compete. And they came out and had a 30-18 lead. And I think with Toronto, they got hit in the mouth first, Rick, and then they were back on their heels, yes, in that second quarter. But it came down to me, LeBron James set the tone. I understand they said P.J. Tucker and Serge Ibaka, those will be the difference of maybe playing. But in that first quarter, his mark was made where I'm going to the bucket, I'm going strong, I'm going hard, and I think he set the tone just the way they came out and played, Rick.
I agree. There's such a thing as energy, which you have to have at this time of year, and it increases from round to round. And then there's aggression. And there's punching first, right? And we saw a Cleveland Cavalier team. Yes, they were at home, in their confines, comfortable, but they're used to punching first at this time. And you cannot be on your heels. You cannot sit back and wait to see what the defending champs are going to bring to bear in Game 1. Now, I understand this is still uncharted territory for them, the Raptors finding a way to start a series off on a good note. But they have rebounded, as we've seen them do over the last few years. Yeah. They do rebound to make a series out of things. They better do that in Game 2.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that with you, Rick, because last year, after the first game, and then really after the first two games of the Eastern Conference Finals, it looked like it was only just a matter of circumstance that we're going to play two more games and this thing would be over with before, as you mentioned, Toronto responded at home, even up the series. They lost by 50 total points in the first two games and came back. This, though, doesn't feel like an 11-point loss. It feels a lot worse.
Yes, because they're supposed to be improved, right? This is supposed to be a team that learned from their experiences last year, their mistakes, and what we were hoping to see would bring to bear something of an improved effort here. They say if you're scared, go to church, right? I know a church you can go to, Calvary. But if you're going to take something from these defending champs, you better know that you're going to have to meet their aggression, and that requires you to not do the dance. This is not a dance anymore, and you thought they would have picked that up from last year. Now, they may still go back to Toronto when you tally up the first two game points, having lost by a total of 50 points. Now, how they handle themselves this time around and how they respond to that in the second game will tell us maybe they've improved in some way.
Well, you said it, Jared. It was more than an 11-point game because it was garbage time. Right. I mean, first through three quarters, they hadn't won a quarter, especially in that first quarter, they got blown out. I do like the way they came out, their bench and Kyle Lowry and DeRozan in that second quarter. But to Rick Fox's point and what we're talking about, that has to be that effort and that energy and that focus for the Toronto Raptors has to be a jump ball. And I think for them, this is a team, when they're down 0-2, they get blown out, they know how to come back. But there are certain teams, like the Cavs, they might not let you come back. So this is the one where they got to be careful. You can't keep falling in the holes and then you're going to dig yourself out, especially against the Cavs, who hasn't really found their mark three-point-wise. Because there's going to be a game where they're not missing three-point shots, and that's the one you can't do anything about.
Yeah, they go 14 for 34, the Cavs do, from downtown, including, 9 in the first half. That really was demoralizing for Toronto. Well, the Cavs' defense, since the All-Star break, has been under a microscope, and they know they need to get better. Wasn't great against Indiana in the first round. Now, they give up 105 points in Game 1. Now, many people may look at this and talk about the garbage time that you mentioned, so maybe you can find a way to say it wasn't 100 points that they gave up tonight. But there was something in this that showed their time off, that they had found something in that Toronto team that they wanted to explode.
You know, I love T. Lue and I love this team because at times they'll have some different schemes defensively that they just throw at you at the right time. And we got a chance to watch old school where me and Rick Fox played. Trap the pick and roll. A lot of teams don't. As you watch right now, Kyle Lowry got going. As you can see, everybody's coming over and they're saying, you're just going to beat us by kicking out to other players. And yes, Kyle Lowry and DeRozan are two guys that can make plays, but look at the attention to detail by Kyle Lowry by the Cleveland Cavaliers. Run a pick and roll, and everybody's there. That's a contested shot, but that's a lot of work taking his legs. Here, we're saying, I love you. Corey Joseph, you're going to have to make the play, and we're going to switch. We're going to hedge hard. A lot of these coaches now, they play behind because they don't want to give up three-point shots. But I like what the Cavs are saying. At this point, we're saying we're going to make others beat you, and that's trusting. Pick and roll, small, yes, good hedge, come back and say, hey, if you're DeRozan, you can find Kyle Lowry amongst all these trees, Rick Fox and Jared. You have to do that. Other than that, you're going to take some hard, contested, tough twos.
Yeah, thank you for breaking that down, Smitty, because as I take a closer look and listen to you speak, I'm watching an obvious game plan of controlling the paint and protecting the paint by that Cav organization. We talk, boxes and elbows. When people come into that area, you collapse on them. I think they believe the Toronto Raptors are going to have to beat them from the perimeter. And right now, the Raptors, as we know, have some shooters that can shoot the three ball, but it's really not where they start their attacks. So, yeah, I mean, if they're going to still try to, get into that paint, they're going to meet a ton of bodies in front of them.
Question for me, Rick Fox. Yeah. As people see it nowadays, that was Lowry and DeRozan in a pick and roll. If you run your defense correctly, you can still stop two best players. I mean, Kyrie got out and hedged.
Yeah.
LeBron got back.
Yep.
And if you got trust by your teammates behind you, you can still play two great players in pick and roll.
And with all of that action in front at the pick and roll, you also noticed, if you look deeper, on the back line, there were two people attentive to, not just one, putting bodies between that pick and roll and the basket. So at any point, if there was a breakdown and there was a threat at the paint, they were met before they even got anywhere near there with two additional people. So it's going to have to be an adjustment for the Raptors.
Let me throw another number out at you here as we wait to go live to Cleveland to the podium for press conferences. The Raptors only had 12 turnovers, which is pretty manageable for an NBA game. But Cleveland, who's not known for making you pay as an opponent, they turned those 12 turnovers into 18 points, Smitty.
Yeah, they did a good job, and I think that was that energy and aggression Rick Fox was talking about. When they got the basketball, they were saying, hey, we're going to come at you 100 miles per hour. We're either going to foul us or we're dunking the basketball. And they don't get a lot of turnovers. They don't have a lot of aggressive one-on-one defenders. But when they do turn the basketball over, as you can see, they got guys committed to run. My whole thing in playing with Coach Wilkins, he's like, it's not about the guy with the basketball. It's about everybody else on the fast break committed to run, making it easier for that guy with the basketball. If everybody runs, and you get numbers, you get different things like this. And I think that's the commitment for everybody trying to run.
When people ask sometimes, like, why did they just get out of the way when LeBron is coming at them? And it is because he comes not only as a freight train, but he comes also as a facilitator, right? So the understanding of how to take the contact, and we see people try to wrap him up, and he still gets through and fights through and gets an and one. It's just not as easy as you think. But I think there's the understanding, and it's why no one's really meeting him at half court or catching him and walling him off before and treating him like you would treat a John Wall or treating him like you would treat any of our top-tier point guards like Russell Westbrook, where you don't let them create that engine and that speed and no momentum, because once they cross half court, you're going downhill now, and you might as well get out of the way, because he's going to get an and one. He's going to put you in foul trouble. They're going to get the bonus. It's going to be 8 minutes to go in the quarter. So you cannot let those outlet passes happen so quickly to him. Mm-hmm. You can't turn the ball over and think about sprinting back. You have to get back right away.
With questions about how Kyle Lowry has sometimes shot the ball in playoff games, in particular last year, the first two games of the East Finals, and how his back has been dealing with some stiffness, it's got to be a good sign that he's able to go 7 for 13. Lowry scores 20, has 11 assists. But now you're saying, how much more can you get from Lowry and DeRozan combined, who give you 39? Now, obviously, DeRozan's capable of a big, big number, but they weren't even close to those type of numbers when they got blown out of the first two games last year.
No, you're right. I like the way Kyle Lowry played tonight. You look at him, I wish him and DeRozan set the tone. And I'm not talking about scoring, just meeting aggression, meeting the energy of the Cavs as two leaders and the two best players early. They got going, because we all, like we talk about, it's a cliche, they got punched in the mouth first in that second quarter. Both guys got going, but these two guys got to set the tone early. Drive the basketball extremely hard. I know this was against second unit guys, But they have to do this against the first team guys in first unit in the first 3 minutes to set the tone.